Sup shooters, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to SB Interviews, where today for our second we're going to be speaking to Austin from Unspeakable Vehicle. We're going to switch over to here to he's on Skype at the moment, and everyone say hello to Austin. How you doing, Austin?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
I am great, thank you. Please do introduce yourself and tell everyone watching this about who you are and what you do.
Howdy, my name's Austin. I am one third of Unspeakable Vehicle. I am the singer and piano player and mainly the person who kind of puts everything together, kind of. I usually arrange a lot of the recordings and stuff like that and work out a lot of main ideas, but I'm not the main person behind all of this. But for a lot of the earlier stuff, that's what my purpose was. But now it's kind of split amongst all three of us as we all kind of learn everything.
So you're sort of going through like a learning process throughout the music that you write.
Well, for me, like working on instruments and stuff like that, like that's something I've done for several years now. I've played piano since I was like 6. I've played a lot of instruments and stuff like that, but the thing that I've always struggled with is vocals and stuff like that. Like I've never thought of myself as being a singer because like most people, I usually would record myself singing and then listen back to it and be like, oh, that's awful. And then like with later stuff, like up until recently, like with our first song that Unspeakable Vehicle ever did with Oh Miss Valentine, I recorded vocals, and I remember listening back to them for the first time and be like, man, I kind of like that. That's not that bad. And it was the first time I'd ever heard my own voice on a recording and actually been like, that's actually okay. I can actually listen to that.
It's kind of funny how that works. You slowly get used to the sound of your own voice, eh? How long have you guys been going for?
Well, myself, I've bounced around to different bands and stuff like that. I've never really stopped making music, but it's never been to a point where I was happy with it. And then I met Patricia about mid 2018, about that time. And about a year later after that, it was about late October, where I kind of started talking to her about music a whole lot because she was playing guitar and recording stuff like that, and I was like, you're not that bad of a guitar player. And then we after talking about it for a little bit, I ended up talking to another person I knew, and her name was Krista, and like me and her were essentially best friends, and she was a female vocalist, which she is no longer in the band because of her work schedule, sadly. But on November the 8th of 2019. I talked to Patricia, and then like I was like, I work on music a lot, and I came up with this band name a while ago, and it's Unspeakable Vehicle, and I was like, it's a new project that I kind of wanted to start working on. If you wanted to hop on board and work on this with me, and then she was like, oh yeah, I'm on board, and I went to Kristen, and I was like, I asked her the same thing. She's like, you want to hop on board too? And she's like, yeah, sure. And I was like, well, boom, there we go.
It sounds like you guys have a really nice, friendly dynamic to the band. So that's just something that's sort of like been a consistency with you guys. Like, it's all sort of chill.
Yeah, that's basically how it is, and like all the way throughout everything, because it's never like we take ourselves too seriously. Because I always think that if you take everything too seriously, everything like the art itself, the music itself can be taken. You can kind of be affected in a negative way,
Because it's tricky, right? You want to sort of have a really good rapport with the people you're working with, but then there can sometimes be that temptation for it to be more of a kind of a social thing where you sort of chill out and sort of, I don't know, if you drink, you drink, and then you realize, oh, we've been drinking for an hour and we haven't played any instruments,
Yeah, which how it is for us is that it's mainly Patricia she'll even admit it. She's not super great with ideas or anything like that. She usually can just come up with something really cool on a guitar, but writing out storylines and stuff like that has never been her thing. She's never really been able to do anything like that, or writing lyrics or anything like that. So most of that fell on me, and then Krista was too busy to do anything. So I was just stuck in the middle of being like, well, I guess I gotta write everything. And we ended up working on this one project, and then it kind of fell apart because I didn't think it, I thought it was too large of a scope. And so I kind of took it and I threw it onto a shelf and said, we'll work on that some other time. And then I took about 4 of the songs from it and then moved it over to what ended up becoming our first album because I added 3 more songs that we came up afterwards. And that was Summer of Disconnections. And I remember looking back on it, I like the first time I made that album, I remember my first thought was like, man, that's kind of bad. It's like I looked at it and I was kind of upset in a way because I felt like I wasn't ready to put everything like just being me. I wasn't ready for that. And I was hoping in a way that I could either rely on Patricia or Krista and be like, see, y'all got ideas too. Could y'all throw that in here? Because like neither of them were able to provide anything, so it was just me. And I was like, crap, this is garbage.
Yeah, it can be kind of tricky when you sort of feel like you're having to sort of put everything together yourself, you know?
Yeah.
Because, as I'm sure you're aware, often there's a stereotype of like one person, especially the vocalist, being the person who tells the rest of the instruments what to do, you know what I mean? But it's kind of refreshing to listen to someone who actually is willing to cooperate with the rest of the band. That's fantastic. It sounds like a really healthy dynamic you guys have.
And then how it is now, like Krista dropped out because she was too busy, and I ended up talking to this one guy that I had met through really funny circumstances. It is like really weird, but I started talking to this guy. His name's Noah, and he plays drums, and he is very good in my opinion. And after talking to him quite a bit, he ended up joining into the band about halfway through making our second album. A Compass May Give Me Directions. Like I'm going to shorten the title because I'm not going to repeat that entire thing every time. But he joined in about halfway through when I was working on a lot of that. And then like Summer of Disconnections and A Compass, and my initial idea was that A Compass didn't have a title yet. The title came after Noah joined the band, and then it just kind of, I don't know what it was. I was sitting down and I was like, I wonder what we should call this album. And then I was just sitting there and I was like, and then the sentence just popped in my head. It was, A compass may give me directions, but the only thing I will follow is you. And I was like, that's kind of nice. I kind of like that. And it just popped into my head out of nowhere. And I showed it to Noah and I was like, that like it just happened.
It's actually an incredible album name. I have never heard an album name that long that has kept me interested. You know what I mean? Because how well do you think that describes the actual music in the album itself?
I think it described it pretty well because whenever it popped into my head and then I looked at the album, I was like, wait a minute, this is an album about traveling around the world. So, you got a compass that shows directions, and then the compass and directions is both in the title. So it both fits into the traveling aspect. Plus, there's the love story running throughout the entire thing between Deacon and Melody. So the only thing I will follow is you makes up for that part. And I was like, I was really proud of it the first time I ever looked at it. And I was like, it's kind of nice.
Because, like, we've listened to the entirety of that album. That's the biggest review I have done in my time as a music reviewer. It was a gargantuan odyssey, and it was incredible. It was an incredible experience. Like, for anyone watching this who hasn't listened to it, I know it's like a tale around the world, and it's like a love story, right? Like, but do you want to give a rough synopsis for it, or do you want to sort of give a teaser to get people into it, or?
In a way, this album is a continuation of our previous one, where in the previous one, our character, Deacon, essentially separates himself from the world, and then it moves into A Compass, where Deacon ends up meeting someone by the name of Melody, and they kind of talk to each other, and they're just like, let's go away for a little bit, and then I'm off, and then they go into the rest of the world, and each song, all the way up until track 12, which is the last place they visit, is a different place that they visit and the events that conspire at each place. Like track 3 is the City of Lights, which is set in Paris, and talks about how Deacon is kind of reflecting on like this relationship that just blew out of water, and it kind of reflects on something that happened in Summer of Disconnections, which I really liked. How if you listen to this one and then that one, it kind of connect together in a few places. I was really proud of that.
Because when you have that sort of connection between two records, that's pretty huge, right? That's kind of like saying, right, I am so content with what this first album has said that I want to give this a sequel. I mean, I don't know many bands that have that. You know what I mean?
There's definitely some bands that I think do some like continuing stories throughout albums, and doing it our way, I really liked the way it was going, like in like a Compass, which ends in a way that I was actually originally there was a completely different ending to the album. Like it didn't end the way that it does now. There was actually a song called "Come Back to Me" that was actually at the end, and it wasn't what is on the album now. Like there is a song called "Come Back to Me" at the end of the album, but it's not the original ending that we had planned.
Oh.
And my original plan was that Midnight Road was that little final chord that reflects and shows little bits of each song throughout the album. It would be on Midnight Road, and then "Come Back to Me" would be the album closer. And I remember making "Come Back to Me," and then by the time it was finished, I listened back to it, and I was like, I don't think this is a fitting ending. I don't think it ends it right, because it, like, throughout the entire album, you've got all of these very sad moments and stuff like that, and it kind of becomes a little happier a little bit throughout it. Like, you can see a little bit of the happier moments and stuff like that, and then whenever you reach the end, "Come Back to Me" was the saddest song I had ever made up until that point.
Yeah, the beauty of a lot of the music on this album is that you don't need the lyrics, right? You can just really get what the impression required from the music, and that it seems like it should be an obvious thing. But you'd be surprised how many tracks, I mean, like that I personally review, where I don't know what the music's trying to tell me. You guys do a great job of that.
Like I've always, like, whenever I was too nervous to sing, a lot of the music I made was very instrumental, and I was like, well, if I can't sing and I'm too uncomfortable to, then I need to be able to convey the message in the instrumental, which I think doing it that way for so many years and then coming up to Unspeakable Vehicle and then finally being like, okay, I can sing on something. I think it was a perfect build-up to it, because like we're here now, and then when I'm putting songs together and playing all the different instruments, I would be able to, I would say, I need to visualize this. Like I want to, like on In Debt Daniel, I want to be able to see this party. I want to be able to hear it. I want to be able to visualize it in my mind and be able to think about it. So like whenever you're hearing In Debt Daniel call out San Francisco, you should be able to hear him literally just call out San Francisco while all these people are around him, just either cheering him on or judging him in some way.
Yeah, no, you got it bang on. You know, like you can have you it's a whole thing, right? It's a whole sort of sense of stylistic cohesion where you guys included Foley and stuff like that, you know? You included actual people talking. It was so cool. Just those small things can make it like a good song great, because otherwise, you know, there's just that something missing, eh?
And there was one part of the album I know you didn't get to listen to because I had actually added it after everything, and it's a part that comes before In Debt Daniel, and it's a thing I did. It's called Everybody Misses Out, and it, like, originally Everybody Misses Out was this dark synth pop song, and I was like, I don't like that either, so I took that and threw it aside, and I was like, if I come up with something later, I'll do it different. But I didn't, like, we went into it, and I wrote out a idea for the track list, and it was like, that was the craziest thing to me, that I actually think about it. At the very beginning of working on the album, I sat down and was like, all right, I want to kind of write down a title and be like, all right, so this is where this is what that song should sound like, that title that I'm going to write down. And I remember, now that I think about it, I wrote down several titles, and I changed 3, All of the rest have remained the same since the beginning. That's kind of
Crazy, man.
crazy to me, actually. Like, I wrote down these titles and made songs based off them from the very beginning.
So how long did the total process of making that album take? How long did you need to make that whole thing?
When we were working on Summer of Disconnections, like throughout June and July, we started finishing it up, and like towards the end of July. And as it was essentially like I had sent it off to Krista and Patricia and said, like those are your things to record, since they didn't have enough time to come up with anything. So I just put together what they needed to record and gave it to them. And I was like, I'm going to write out that track list. So it was about probably July 18th, 19th, somewhere around there, when I had wrote it down. And then the next day, after I'd wrote it down, I started working on the first song that I came up with, because I wanted to do it from beginning to end, and I didn't want to kind of be like, well, I kind of feel like working on this, or I kind of feel like working on that. So I decided to work on the first song I had came up with a title with, which was I'm Off. And I was like, all right, I'll start working on that. And then I played 4 chords, and then I was like, I'm really happy with those. And then I started messing around, shortening some notes, and then kind of copying it, and then playing out different melodies on top of it. And then I stacked all of it on top of each other, and then it's like, boom, there's the main melody for I'm Off. And then I was like, I don't like how quick it starts. So I made that little build-up thing that goes throughout the very beginning of the song on the piano. And even before that, I'd had this drum roll that's going to go before it, and it's going to build into that. And I had that on fake drums because Noah wasn't in the band at this point. He wasn't in the band until October, November, around then. I want to say it's October. Yeah, it was October, because that's when he recorded I'm Off and everything.
So
So,
when
yeah.
we talk about like June, July, and October, are we talking about last year?
Yes.
That's crazy. So how many albums is that in that time? Is that two albums?
Like, we were finishing up Summer of Disconnection started coming together in April and May, and it was finished by July.
Okay.
And then July started up with a Compass, and then the Compass was finished by December, early January.
That's an insane work ethic, right? That's quite a lot of material in that space of time. Like, well done. Wow. I don't suppose you're feeling like doing a third in 2021, or are you having a break for a bit?
Well, we're actually, like, I'm only taking a very short break. Like, I told Noah and Patricia, I was like, all right, I'm going to stop working on stuff and just write down ideas until about Valentine's Day, and I'm going to start working on stuff. I thought that was a short enough break for me. Like, we finished the album in, like, December, and I went into January, and I was like, I'm going to just take this month off, and,
Yeah.
like, half of February. And then it's literally 13 days. I've literally been struggling not to work on stuff. Like, I never thought I would stop working on something and then be upset because I couldn't work on it. Like, I would go to work on something, I was like, no, you need to stop. And then my mind just like, but I need it. Yeah.
You got that creativity bug. You got that urge, man.
Yeah, and then I was talking with Noah, and we've been working out a lot of ideas. And we've worked out ideas for 2 albums, actually, that we plan to be this year. And I was talking to him about it, and I was like, that's a lot of work, but we did it last year, so I think we could do it this year.
Yeah, that's
And instead of,
that's crazy. 4 albums in 2 years.
and like, we're halfway there, so.
Exactly, you're halfway here. Like, what are these next few albums going to be about? Are they going to be a continuation of the first 2, or?
I can't go into too much on I don't know how Noah would feel. The 3rd album that we have planned is Noah's idea. It was his idea, and then like me and him went back and forth on it. And that's another thing about me and Noah. Like, the way we work is something that has always blown my mind, and it blows his just as much, because what we do is one of us will have an idea, we throw it to the other, and the other just pitches it back with an extra thing, and we just keep throwing it back and forth, and by the end of the night, like within a few hours. We have an entire album planned, each song, how it's supposed to sound, each lyric for every song, and it was crazy. Like the song Avalanche on A Compass was his idea, and he brought it up, and then we threw ideas back and forth again and again, and then that ended up being the final product of the album. I mean, of that song.
I have to say that Avalanche was one of my favorites, actually, on that note. That was a crazy track. It actually sounded like you were being covered in snow, you know?
Yeah. And Noah had brought it up, and he said he wanted some things, and I was like, what if we got some like snowstorm audio and we like placed it on the actual song? That was my idea, because I liked the idea of adding snow and stuff like that. And then I brought it up to him that we could add like he could record some drums, and I could add some insane delay and reverb on them, and then stack them, and then put them a little ahead and a little behind, so they sound really weird and very dark. And I could tone them down as well, so it sounds like you're literally in an avalanche, and that was what happened on the final product.
That's good. That's good thinking. That's good. So like the music's obviously pretty well put together. Like how's the reception been to the albums that you've been putting out?
So far, Summer of Disconnections got nothing. Like it was very under the radar, but to be fair, in my own opinion, it wasn't anything over the moon or anything special. Like there were a few tracks on there that I can even go back to and be like, man, this is kind of a banger. I'll listen to this. Like, and no, I listened to A Compass, and we're actually closer to release day. It's only 23 days away, and I've submitted it to a few places and sent it to places to get it reviewed by people. And across the board, I've even specified to some people, it's like, hey, if you got a critique, spit it out already. And then across the board, a lot of people enjoy it. Like I've gotten a few people, like the number one critique that, there's actually two critiques that we get the most. One of them is my singing voice, which I've always been, like it's very weird because for my voice, some people hate it, some people like it, and it's just very weird to me because I have some people that think it ruins songs. I have other people who think that it's all right and it actually improves some songs in some way. Like Noah thinks that my vocal performance on In Debt Daniel made the song because of how off-putting it sounds, because I sound drunk in a way.
You have a very unique voice, I've got to say. I haven't really heard a voice like yours before, and it took me a while to get used to it. But what works for you with your voice is that the effects chain you put on it kind of helps it to meld really well with the rest of the music. So it sort of sounds like you're both, it's obviously the lyricist, but it works well as an instrument, you know?
The other critique that we get is one that me and Noah and Patricia all had a great laugh at because we thought it was the dumbest critique we had ever heard. Somebody had said that our music is too melodic, that there's too many instruments. And I was like, I don't understand that critique at all.
What? How do you get that? Like, how do you get a criticism about it? What do they want it to be? Like more harmonic? Do they want it to be more like kick drums? Do they want you to stick an 808 in it? What do they want?
It's like, would you like it if we had a piano and then drums and that's it? Like it's like they complained that there's too many instruments on the song and that it feels like there's too many melodies, and I was like, every instrument is almost playing the same thing, or they're playing a part of the same melody, and they're just kind of like my bass guitar, which you may or may not see back there. It never plays the exact same thing unless you're on the chorus. Like on I'm Off, it plays the same thing. But during the verses, it does this thing where it plays in a different tempo. And I loved the way it sounded. Like it sounded on that because it was like a da, da, da. And it was very off from the rest of the melody, which is it's kind of fitting.
I think that is a fantastic thing to play around with that. And the shame is that for a lot of people, doing something kind of daring, like not having the bass perfectly sync with the drums, is like just a death sentence for some people, you know? It's like but for you guys,
tell me not to do that.
I mean, for you guys, it's more about, it's kind of theatrical for you guys, isn't it? The stuff you make.
Yeah, and like with A Night at the Opera, which in my opinion was the most theatrical song we did because of how many vocal takes I did for that. Like looking at it, it took forever to even mix or master because there were so many vocal takes. Like I layered my voice over 400 times sometimes, and it was like on the fall thing, I wanted it to sound like it was falling, so I lowered it where they like each take was a slightly lower volume or slightly in a different key, so it sounds like it's just lowering as it goes across as it goes along. And I think the final result was great. That's the largest piece on the entire thing, and it's over like 100 layers.
That's ridiculous. That's a lot of layers, man. You didn't have any points where you accidentally covered over a take and you're like, oh no, you know?
I have always like done a lot of stuff like that, but I've like on A Night at the Opera, I decided I was just going to go crazy on vocal stuff. And there were a few moments that even going back and listening to it, I was like, I probably should have re-recorded that. And, which is kind of crazy because when you take 400 vocal takes on the same song and then you go back and listen and you're just like, I kind of didn't do too well right there. It's a very weird feeling. It's like I just did 400 takes and it's still not satisfactory to me.
That kind of, we're going into the actual production side of things, right? With how you record everything. Like, how would you describe your production process in regards to the overall thing? Like, how did you record those drums?
With Noah, he has never had a lot of expensive equipment, and there were different ways that he could have recorded stuff, and the favorite of mine and his was just literally setting up an iPhone and just recording the best of it. And then what I would do is that on my end, I would put it through a couple of compressors and stuff like that, and then up the lower end so it sounds a little bit bassier, and just kind of overall treating it to my production on my end, because any issues that he had on his end with the iPhone recording, I would fix on my end.
You recorded the drums on an iPhone?
Yeah.
What? Oh, that's crazy. That is, I thought it was like two mics like that, you know, and like stereo like that or like that. But to think that you guys managed to record it on it, that blows my mind. That blows my mind.
There are a couple of things that I've always been told are big no-nos when it comes to production, like horrible mics, and it'll just ruin the whole recording. And I was like, okay, no, I'll record that on iPhone, send it over, and I'll do that. Or like I record all of my vocal takes on this, and that's a Blue Snowball microphone. Like I do have a better microphone, but it's always had issues because my computer thinks it's a headset, and it's like, no, it's not. It's a microphone. Like, I plug it up, and it tries to play audio through it. And I was like, it doesn't work like that.
This isn't what I want you to do, computer. Behave yourself, right? Wow, I'm going to need some time to come to terms with the fact that you recorded the drums through that is incredible. I've never heard a recording sound that good through an iPhone of a drums. Usually drums beat the crap out of a phone microphone, but you guys managed to pull it off. I am so impressed by that.
There's another thing that when like Noah didn't know that I did, he really liked the vocals on I like doing a lot of skit stuff on songs. Like if you may not have heard it because it's very low in the mix, but originally it wasn't, but it's because I layered so many things that it became too low in the mix. But at the very end of the internal conflict, I decided to play the role of the newscaster again and just hit record and say whatever I wanted. So I just kind of ran around my room and started saying stuff. It's like, you gotta shut it down, you gotta turn off the machines, like you can't let them get in here, like just saying stuff like that. And It, like all the way through that is what I did. And I noticed that it was getting near the end of the song, so I just started yelling, "Shut it down now," as loud as I could. And that was the only thing I remember being audible on the thing until I layered so many things and added Noah's drums to it. Because on that is like that's the least production I ever did on his drums right there. At the very end of the internal conflict, I essentially took off the compressors because I liked how fuzzy it sounded, and I just made it fade in. So as it went in, it just made it sound more and more just chaotic and crazy, and I loved that.
Like, for anyone watching this who is like, man, I can't record drums because I don't have a set of really expensive drum microphones, and you know how people, you've probably heard people make excuses about not being able to sort of produce their own music, right? Nah. People such as yourselves who've got a good head on your shoulders and who are really onto it, you find ways around it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I've never been the greatest lyricist. I will admit that. I'm not great at writing stuff. I've tried, but I've never really gotten anything perfect. I think the most proud I had ever been of lyrics was on I'm Off, because I thought I got that perfect. I thought it painted the picture really well. But then I looked at the rest of the songs and I was like, I don't know if some of these are kind of right on the mark. And there was one thing I did that Noah didn't believe, and then he saw me do it, and then he believed me. On In Debt Daniel, I didn't write anything. I just hit record and was like, I'm just going to sing and whatever I get. And what you hear on that song is my first take ever recording vocals on that song. I didn't write anything. I just hit record, and whatever came to mind, I sung.
Damn, man. That's not bad.
And I'd listened to the instrumental quite a few times, so it was something like I had recognized the melodies and everything and where the song went. And I remember it was set in San Francisco, so just welcome to the West Side. I remember that being the first thing that popped into my mind when I thought of San Francisco, because it's set over there. So I was like, all right, I'll just record that. That'll be the first lyric, and then I went off of that.
Because it makes me wonder where you guys are going to go. I know you can't say a lot about it, especially because it's like fine if you don't want to say a lot about it. You know, it's always better to kind of save, you know, the big release until it gets released. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm trying to, where would you guys, how would you kind of, are you wanting to go to the next sort of like, are you wanting to kind of continue the same kind of vibe that you've got, or are you wanting to sort of increase the intensity of it, or?
Well, like, we're trying to be Noah has always been in a situation like, he's had a lot of drum teachers and music teachers and stuff like that have always told him, well, you can't make mistakes. You have to be perfect. You have to be right on the mark, or you ruin the entire song. The entire song. And I was talking to him, and I was like, that's not how it is. No. Like if you make a mistake, you can live your life. You're not going to ruin the entire thing, because it doesn't have to be perfect. And with how we're going into the next album, with a lot of the ideas that we're writing down, I'm just going to say it's a very large project, and it's an album, but it's only 4 songs.
Totally fine, man. Totally fine. Those tracks, for all I know, could be like 50.
Like my little hint of it is that it's 4 songs, but it's long enough to be an album.
Damn. So is this going to be like, I'm assuming they're going to be tracks that are either like a big journey with different parts, or are they going to be like split into different parts within the song, you know?
Currently, as that album stands, the title of it is self-titled. It's Unspeakable Vehicle.
Oh, cool.
The reason why, and I was talking to Noah, because he originally didn't have a title for his project either, and I was like, he had brought up Unspeakable Vehicle, and then after thinking about it, I was like, if you really think about it, this is the first project from where he's on board for the entire ride. I'm on board for the entire ride, and Patricia's on board for the entire ride. It's the first time all 3 members have been here from the beginning.
Fantastic. Well done. That is really cool. Like, to stick with the project and to not let something kind of get in the way. It's really cool that you guys have managed to work through this, eh?
Yeah. Like, I've always been a let unconventional stuff ride, because being unconventional is okay. If you want to go with something that sounds weird, go for it. Like, I hate going into something and being like, well, you can't do that, because I'm going to do that. That's the first thing I'm going to do. I don't care. Like, just recording vocals in such a weird way, like I do, and just recording 400,000 takes for the same song, all because I'm trying to get different lyrics of people screaming in the background for some reason. And with our new project, it's freaking, like, the one we're going into is something that I really like, because me and Noah are big fans of concept albums, and we're really keeping that idea going throughout each album. And I was like, that's great.
Yeah. Nah, it's I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys do next, because it's just because of the fact that what you guys have put out already is pretty dope. Like, it's unique, and you guys put everything into it. Like, just listening to what you've said about the production process for Compass alone, it's just, for anyone who's a fan of you, it like gives them a lot of hope that the next material is just gonna be really good, you know?
Yeah. Like, I hate to say that, like, a lot of things have been based off of luck. I will admit, I've been pretty lucky when it comes to making music. Like, happening to hit the right chords in the right order, and then being like, boom, oh god, I'm off. And literally freestyling the lyrics for In Debt Daniel on first take, on first try. And I was like, I just hit it, and just what I sung was what the final song ended up being. And I was like, I'm so proud of that.
I'm just thinking about how you guys are going with all the stuff going on over where you are, you know? Because
Yeah.
in case, because you're over in the States, right? You're over in the States, am I correct?
Yes.
So
2 out of 3 of us are.
Oh?
Yeah, Patricia lives over in Germany, and Noah lives nowhere near me. All of us create the internet. I mean, all of us create the music over the internet.
That's okay. This actually makes a lot of sense to me, because I was thinking, with all like the stuff that's been going down with like travel restrictions and all that, because of things that have been happening, you know.
Yeah. A certain thing that's happening in the world.
I was thinking, how did you guys spend enough time together to be able to record a couple of it? Not that it's any of my business, don't get me wrong. I mean, I live in New Zealand, one of the few places where like people can sort of get together and just chill, you know, but it's even better. You guys aren't even in the same town, and you've made 2 albums.
Like the thing about it is, like, even then, most of the stuff that me, Patricia, and Noah do is hang out. Like, I almost every day just hang out with Patricia and play games, and then we'll talk about music maybe 5 minutes, and then just go play some Counter-Strike Global Defensive or some other game on my computer, and we'll just chat like that.
Dude, that's honestly, it's a beautiful thing. You know, it's amazing. You know, it's just beautiful how people can connect through the internet nowadays and start projects like these, eh? I was gonna ask about like the live scene where you are. Do you ever think there's like a chance of you guys like having like doing a live streaming a gig or something like that?
We've always talked about it, but like my number one concern is that Patricia lives so far away that she could never make it to one. But Noah knows this guitarist, and I've talked with him, and he was like, I'll be interested in playing some gigs. And so I was talking to Noah, and we were talking about maybe potentially finding a way to either record some type of show or wait until this thing that's going around is gone so we can play something. And we've worked out 2 places. One where I've got enough money I could afford to pay to play there. And Noah's got this other place where he knows some people and they'll let him play there. So we got 2 places worked out.
Because, like, a staple of, like, putting your material out there used to be doing gigs. That used to be a really prime thing that you had to do. You had to play to get your music out there. But for you guys, luckily, with a whole lot of the accessibility with the digital age and all that, you guys can put your material out without needing to do all the stuff in person. It's great, eh?
And what I really want to do is actually find a way to be able to play gigs, and like working out a lot of how songs would have to be. I've looked at some things and talked with Noah about how we would do some things. And for our fourth album, which is the scheduled way later at the end of the year, we were talking that it would be an album that we could play live in its entirety, because just like most of our albums, it tells a story from start to finish. And plus, there's a few points where you could take some songs, throw them out, and then replace them with older songs and put them in there, and the story makes sense still. Plus, it would give me an opportunity to be able to play just random different characters and actually make the live show a show, which is what I've always thought it to be. Like, I've never wanted to just go to a live show and then it just be, or star in a live show and it just be music. Like, I get that a lot of people, that's what they go for. And I was like, I want to give a performance. Like, that's what I want it to be.
Especially for what you guys do. Because you've got these sort of concepts, you'd probably need to have that show to kind of really put it all together. You know what I mean? Which
I do have one more thing about these 4 albums here. The fourth one was originally that album, all that I told you way back in the beginning, that I didn't think we were capable of doing. I threw to the side. That's what that fourth album is.
Oh, good. So you're going to be doing something with that material.
Yes.
Nice. Good. Yeah, man. That's the trick. Hey, you put stuff to the side and then you never get to it.
Yeah. We've now officially looked at the side, and we've just grabbed some stuff that we had put to the side and been like, all right, we're going to make projects with this now. Plus the thing between me and Noah of how our kind of dynamic works, of being able to throw an idea his way and he throw it back to me. I was really confident that we could have done something with that project I put to the side, so I brought it out and I started talking to Noah about it. And I mean, within a day, like the entire storyline for the album, the problems that I had working it out and what songs should be there, we had fixed in a day. And I was like, look at that. And it's like, anything that I can't come up with, Noah can, and anything Noah can't come up with, I can. So we just make up for in the areas that each other lack.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's teamwork right there. That is the beauty of cooperation, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Because for a lot of solo artists, especially, those people who are like super talented and they just seem like they can do everything on their own. The reality is that even those guys would probably benefit from having people around them just so they have people to sort of jam with, It's a lonely experience doing music by yourself.
I look at a lot of musicians and like a lot of things. I look around and like I myself, I've always worked on a lot of things by myself, and I hate doing that. Like I know I'm capable of doing it, but I hate doing it because I like having someone on the outside be like, all right, that's kind of not that good, or that's kind of all right, because I hate looking at it from my own perspective and being like, oh, I kind of like this. And it's like I like having someone behind me that can be like, I kind of like that too. And like,
yeah, that's support, especially because you don't know how good something sounds a lot of the time until someone else hears it, eh?
Because like if you spend your time hearing the same song over and over and over and over again while you're working on it, you get song fatigue and stuff like that, and you can't really tell if it's good or if it's bad, because to you, at that point, you may either really like the song or you may hate it at that point because you've heard it so many times. And having someone like Noah and Patricia where I can send it their way and be like, all right, this is the thing I was working on now. And they're just like, all right, actually, it's pretty good. I like that. And I had made I'm Off and was talking to Noah about it, and he was like, well, like, I'm pretty sure that took a few months to come together, and I was like, not really. It's like, I'm Off was finished by the end of July, and like vocals and stuff like that. I had recorded everything for it. The only thing that really hadn't been recorded yet was Noah's drums because he wasn't in the band yet. But on my end, everything was done for I'm Off because I had the fake drums on there, even though I wasn't happy with them. And it's like Noah came along and recorded these drums for that song. And I remember being so upset because he played the beginning of I'm Off differently because originally I had this drum roll thing. And then he performed that fill that leads right into the piano. And originally, the first time I ever heard it, I was really upset with it. And I was like, I just don't like that. And the more I listen to I'm Off, the more I feel like an idiot for not liking that fill.
It's okay, man. It's okay, man. Look, it's all a journey, right? It's all a journey. And as long as you're having fun, that's the main thing, right?
Which, with these next two, with everything kind of lining up the way it is, talking with Noah, and then working everything out, I'm excited to get back into working on stuff in 13 days, and then 10 days after I get back to working on stuff, we're releasing a compass. And everyone I've shown it to, one thing that I do know is that everyone I've shown it to, even you, like everyone agrees that Psychedelic Nonsense is like the best song we've ever done. And I myself listen to that song regularly because I was so proud of it. And after the first 2 minutes of the song, each minute is dedicated to a different member of the band. The first minute is dedicated to me with synthesizers and strings and trumpets and a really nice bass line, which apparently a lot of people have a lot of trouble hearing on that song. But that section right there is dedicated to me, and all of my favorite instruments and everything that I've ever played is all featured there, except for strings. I can't play strings. But then the next minute is dedicated to Patricia, and she pulled off some of the craziest stuff I've ever heard on acoustic and electric guitar. And then the last 2 minutes, the next minute is dedicated to Noah, and you hear him do some crazy stuff on drums. And then the very, very last minute of the song is dedicated to all three of us. I take the three previous sections and I overlay them.
That is a beautiful way to finish that. It's a beautiful way to finish that with that group. Which, on that note, I believe this may be approaching the end of the interview. Because we have been going... We've been going for 50 minutes, man.
It does not feel like it.
Well, thank you very much for coming into this interview today. This SP Interviews. Is there anything you wanted to say to people before we head off for today?
Listen to A Compass and watch more of his reviews. The guy is awesome.
Thank you so much. Now that I really appreciate that. And thank you for the opportunity to listen to your music and to chat with you today. It was a really nice time.
Thank you for interviewing me on all this. This has been a great conversation I've had with you here.
All right, well, everyone say goodbye to Austin from Unspeakable Vehicles. We'll catch you soon, bud.
Peace out, everybody.
And that was Unspeakable Vehicles, our interview for today. SP Interviews number 2. Remember, we spoke to Westchester in the first one, and we've spoken to Unspeakable Vehicles today. Hopefully you enjoyed this interview. If you liked listening and hearing more about Unspeakable Vehicle stuff, I'll be making sure to include some links in the description for this video so you can check out more of their material, as well as just to learn more about who they are. You know, they've got a couple of albums that they've either recorded or they've got in the works. So it's going to be a very exciting time for these guys, these three. So please do give them some love. But thank you for watching this interview, this SP Interviews today. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Stay cool, stay safe. Please also remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as need all the help, all the with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next review. Oh, sorry, the next interview. I keep saying review, I mean interview. Next SP Interviews. Spider Hens out.